and agriculture had been on the ropes way before the arrival of coronavirus in Nigeria, owing to the disruption of farming in different areas of the country by the activities of marauding herdsmen, among other factors as well. Now, the inability to develop mechanized farming, coupled with the clogs created by the Land Use Act, in addition to the failure of the river basin authorities, had all combined to hinder sufficient food production, both for local consumption and also commercial purposes. Now, the entry of coronavirus into the picture was always going to worsen this outlook and subsequently endanger the country's food security. Recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria, through its Anchor Borrower program, has been doing so much for rice production in Nigeria. But without an end in sight to the coronavirus pandemic, there are subsisting questions regarding Nigeria's capacity to provide food for her millions of citizens even after the contagion ends. For a conversation around this subject, we're now being joined from Arise Abuja studio by Ruth Agbo, National President of the Association of Women in Trade and Agriculture. We're going to speak, the conversation is going to be speaking about the promotion of women in economic empowerment, gender equality, positive impacts through trade and agriculture, and more. Welcome to the program, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, excellent. The audio is excellent. Now, quickly, I mean, the threat of food insecurity has been said to be one of the fallouts of the COVID-19 challenge that the entire world faces. But can you help us try to understand this better in terms of how COVID-19 is impacting on Nigeria's agricultural and food systems? And whether or not this is something we need to really worry about.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you very much. COVID-19, as we all know, came when we least expected. It was not a pandemic that was expected. And it came hard on every aspect of our lives, and especially on the agriculture. So it's something that calls for worry in Nigeria, as far as we are concerned, because it's affecting the ordinary man, the ordinary woman, and of course, everybody out there. So it's something that calls for worry.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, the UN says that the number of people that can't get enough food to eat could double by the end of the year to more than 250 million people. Now, how can the availability of food right now be safeguarded? Because that's one of our greatest issues that we're facing with the pandemic.
If I heard you very well, before now, Nigeria has looked inward, into agriculture and to also produce what we can eat and eat what we can produce. And but the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to bear a situation where we know that we actually don't have enough to sustain us in this country. There is really hunger in the land, and the agricultural promotion policy has said no one should go to bed hungry. But of course, the lockdown has really brought it to the point where virtually everybody is hungry. And it has not been an interesting experience, especially in the last 4 weeks, because 4 weeks of lockdown is not 4 days of lockdown. And it has really brought us to the point at which we are now, where everybody is embittered and everybody is worried. If I heard you very well, I guess I answered your question.
Madam, what the government has tried to do, both at the federal level and at the state level now, is to allow markets, the domestic markets, the supermarkets, to open on certain days or for certain hours in any particular day, in order to allow people to have access to the markets and to be able to stock up on food. But the fear is that if the COVID-19 pandemic persists, say up to June, July, that we may have problems in terms of the supply chain. What will you advise government to do in the event that we find ourselves in that kind of situation? For now, they have released 70,000 grains from the National Grains Reserve of various items. But what else can government do in terms of poverty, in terms of policy, in terms of intervention?
Well, there has been market days for in the course of the lockdown, 2 days in the week, Wednesday and Saturday. And of course, there has been influx of people go to market to stock their houses. But it actually got to a point where you won't even, the low-income person or those that live on daily struggles cannot even afford the money to go buy the stuff in the market. And of course, the little that we have even in the market can no longer go around because there is no also source of supply to the market. The retailers are those that are selling. The wholesalers are not bringing stuff across because of interstate restrictions. And that has also affected the supply of foodstuff in the market. It has increased the prices of things in the market, and that has affected us. Yes, the government has tried in their own ability, but I think they could do more because there's just nothing an ordinary woman or ordinary person in the street out there can do. We are all looking up to the government for sustainability and the basic support by way of preventing and the way of dictating and, of course, supporting. So at this time that everybody has to adhere strictly to the lockdown rules, I think there has to be a supportive means also that we encourage everyone to stay back home. It is the hunger that is even killing the ordinary man on the street. And so they prefer to go out and struggle and see if they will meet the coronavirus death in the street because they are hungry. Everyone is hungry. And so we appreciate the government for what they have done so far, but we still expect that they can do much more by way of supporting the informal sector, most especially, the women, most especially, because they are the one that is commanding the home front. They are the one that, you know, the burden of the families fall back on. And so they can also be supported in such a way that if there's so much food and there's so much, availability of resources, it will make the lockdown more effective. You see yesterday that the lockdown was eased out. There was so much, influx and upsurge of people all around town. They just rushed out like a bird that is, escaped from the nest, just to make, to struggle and to survive. And that is also creating another fear in us because we don't know what the outcome of that is going to be in the next 1 week or 10 days to come.
Thank you, Mrs. Agbo. Now, government, certainly there is more that government can do, but we also understand that government in itself is also limited in capacity, and this is where the private sector can come in and also help. Now, in terms of agriculture in particular, where do you think the private sector can come in now to help more, and where would you like to see that help coming from?
The private sector has been helping. NGOs have been doing their best by way of distributing palliatives as well. And if it comes to at the farm level, they have also been trying to bring the stuff they have. The rural, communities and the informal sector depend on even the urban to survive. But a situation where there has been a break in transmission due to the lockdown and restrictions, it has also affected what they could do. And of course, the CSOs, the NGOs have been doing their best. So it's a win-win thing. We need the government and the government needs us. But the extent to which we have gone now, I think there has to be a rethink. The government has to still look into a survival mode, a mode where we can sustain the ordinary man and woman out there because everybody is hungry. And what we have to sustain us for the period that we're at home, I think for most people is exhausted. And so there has to be a solution, a quick solution to it. Otherwise, we might even get out of control to the point that it will become more disastrous for us.
Well, madam, the planting season is here already. The rainy season is here already, and farmers will need to go to the farm. And yet there are restrictions on movement. There are issues in terms of production, in terms of supplies. What kind of advice will you give the average farmer at this time to remain in business, to remain in production, and to be able to farm and get yields in spite of COVID-19? But we'll take a short break. When we return, then you can respond to the question. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our Abuja studio is Ruth Agbo, National President of the Association of Women in Trade and Agriculture. Madam, thank you for staying with us. I'd asked you a question about what can farmers do with all the challenges that they face. It's rainy season, it's planting season, and yet there are restrictions.
Yes, before now, we know that agriculture was already suffering because of terrorist activities in the northern part of this country, even up to the north central area, where we have the food basket of the nation. And of course, we have kidnappings and all sorts of banditry in the south. And then the community and rural lives have become really, really insecure and unsafe. And then we are faced with this hit of a coronavirus pandemic. The rainy seasons have come, like you said, and unfortunately there are restrictions. So what can the farmers do? First and foremost, pray to God, because without God we can't do nothing about these situations. But I think they will also need the intervention of the government. A fruitful vine will command the attention of the gardener. The informal sector, the community farmers are the ones that are sustaining even the urban. They are the ones that bring food to sustain us even in the cities. And so at the point like this where there are restrictions, I think they should be catered for, they should be cared for. There should be an intervention where the farmers will bring on board to ensure growth. They should have resources for farming, especially in the rural areas. There has been insecurity and then this virus thing. So it's something that is really, really calling for concern. So we should keep food supply chains flowing. The government must have to ensure that the supply chain is kept going. You have to really eat well to be healthy so that we can fight any other pandemic. And so since we depend on the community for national food security, we believe that we should invest more on the small-scale agriculture. They should give support to the rural farmers and traders so that there will be more food production and processing. So that there will be more food production and processing. If the government can sit together and bring out a modality that will favor the small-scale farmers at a time such as this, I think the country is going to be helped to a very long extent.
Thank you, and certainly the country will be helped. Mechanized farming is key, and also continuing to keep our supply chain going is also key. Now, the United Nations is saying that vulnerable parts of the world are at serious risk of famine with the coronavirus disease. Now, we're seeing food prices rise in local markets, but we're not seeing food prices rise internationally yet on the global markets. What do you foresee, and how do you analyze that situation? How do you see it playing out?
We are seeing food prices rise in the local market, but not in the global market. If I heard you well, is that what? If I heard you well,
yes, ma'am. So what we're currently seeing is prices, that food prices are rising locally, but not internationally yet. Is that a situation that you foresee? How do you see it playing out? Well,
if it is yes, we are looking inward. we have been asked and told and encouraged to look inward before now. We should produce what we eat and eat what we produce. And because at this time, demand is higher than supply, of course, the prices have gone high. Transportations are restricted. You know, there are no interstate movements to bring in food, even though it's in the policy of the Presidential Task Force to say there should be no restriction on the flow of food. Everybody is taking precaution of their personal health first so that they won't be exposed. And of course, the challenges, you know, along the road with maybe security personnel for them bringing in food. And a situation where you cannot bring in perishable items from one place to the other, it has also increased the prices of the ones that are available. The labor, you know, there's not enough labor to, and that has also disrupted production and process. And of course, limited access to markets. The quarantine measure has really brought about serious situations that we are really facing, and it's like a real die-hard situations that we don't even know a way out of. However, we say that the food production within our country first, not even to think of the international, within our country has to be considered at this time. Let us look inward to settle our citizens first. A hungry man, a hungry woman is an angry man and woman. And agriculture says, let no one go to bed hungry. This is not even a case of 010 or 001. It's a case of almost 000, and that is not good for us. So for me, I think looking inwards is most important now than even comparing the foreign, because as far as we are concerned, we are not looking out again for anything. We are looking inward to sustain us, and that is all that bothers us as the informal sector, as the rural women, as the grassroots, and the local farmers. So let us begin to sustain ourselves with what we have. And since we don't have it, this has also taught us a lesson that we could also begin to save more for the rainy day, because we cannot predict what else will come in the nearest future.
Well, Madam, let's talk about women in trade a little bit in the context of COVID-19. If you look at our domestic markets, most of the people there are the women, the market women. And I guess they have their own associations. But from what I have seen, they too are not observing social distancing. People just go to this market. Sometimes, you know, the market is by the roadside. Whose responsibility is it to get the message across to women in markets, domestic markets, to realize that physical distancing is important, social distancing is important? Because if you look at the structure of the typical Nigerian market, there is nothing about distancing. They all huddle together. And each time I, stop by at any of those markets, I'm scared. Whose responsibility is it to take the message to the market specifically, since the markets are always open?
Yes, it's everybody's responsibility. The social media has been helping. The TV stations have been helping. There has been sensitizations all over the place. Everybody is aware that there is a pandemic in the land. And NGOs, CSOs are also helping. Everybody is giving the sensitization and the awareness and the need for personal hygiene, social, in fact, all the protocol of the pandemic. But you see, because the ordinary woman in the market is more concerned about her domestic responsibility to bring food to her family, to also revolve the little that is in her hand, to be able to, survive. They are daring it, and which is not too good, because the coronavirus does not know the poor or the rich, and the virus does not know whether you are innocently struggling for your family. And so now there has been this awareness of social distancing, wearing of masks, wash your hands, sanitize your hands. They have adhered to some. They have adhered to washing hands probably, sanitizing your hands probably, But that social distancing, it has not worked for any woman in the market. Because even the structure of the market is an enclosed structure where you have so many persons at a point trying to buy what from a source. Of course, you will not expect a woman that wants to sell her goods to say, okay, queue and be on the line. It's something that is really, really worrisome. But we have also tried to let them know. And that is why most of them wear the masks now. And my concern too has even been that these women that sell in the market, is there no way that the government would have given them the PPEs, that is the personal protective equipment, at least let them wear something that will protect them? Is it at this point that tailors are not in the markets, that the market woman will go and sew her coverall and whatever to wear and go and sell in the market? For me, that is one area to have brought an intervention where the basic markets that are selling at the state levels and FCT, for instance, they should see to the women that are selling, because there's a transfer of money, exchange, you know, you give, I take, and all of that. There's this exposure, really. So can't the women also wear these PPEs and be able to sell if we cannot control the social distancing, because there is cluster? You give Wednesday and Saturday as days for shopping, and of course everybody will rush into the market to want to buy. And of course there is also a time frame between 8 o'clock to 3 p.m. So everybody is rushing at the same time to want to buy. So there's just nothing about social distancing that can be, you know, that can be curtailed at that point. So for me, I think maybe the safety, the PPEs can also be given to these women in their shops so that they can also protect themselves. That is about it. The sensitization is ongoing. NGOs are engaging their members to know the importance. And of course, the media is doing that. It's all over. Even the rural woman, the market woman out there can pronounce the coronavirus the way she pronounces it, but she understands that it's a pandemic that is before us. And how she can avoid it, she doesn't know. What she wants first, they say the hunger is even more than that coronavirus. So leave us for where contain us, if I can, say that. You know, that is what they are all after.
Thank you, Madam. Yes. On that note, we'll have to draw the curtain on this segment of the program.